So, hi everybody, and welcome to our live chat with Chaddock event. My name is Kirsty Ruggles, and I am the manager of the Knowledge Center here at Chaddock. And I would like to introduce my two colleagues. So, if Brooke, you would like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Brooklyn Felser, and I work at Chaddock with Kirsty.
And Masha. Masha, you are currently muted.
How I click
There
it.
you go.
Sorry, thank you. I'm Marcia Ryan, and I also work at Chaddock with Kirsty and Brooke.
And so tonight, what we are going to be doing is we're going to spend a bit of time answering some of the questions that you might have while we find ourselves in this unpredictable and somewhat strange situation at the moment with the COVID-19 and while we're quarantined. So our goal is to help parents and families out there who may be struggling with some challenging behaviors in the home and some of the things that they're experiencing with their kids. So we're going to go ahead and we will start with our first question. So the first question is, how do I prepare my child if school is opened back up in the fall? So how do we help prepare our kids for school starting again?
I would just start off by explaining the things that they might be seeing that's different, such as, we might have smaller class sizes. We've heard rumors where they might have half of the kids come one day, half of the kids come another day, and alternate like that. Getting them just prepared for a lot of hand washing, the desk being separate, them not being able to touch their friends, let's say on the playground when they're playing. Those type of things might look different. Gym class might look different. Being in the cafeteria, still staying 6 feet apart, washing hands before you enter the cafeteria, when you leave the cafeteria, just kind of going through those scenarios that might look a little different for them, just so that they're prepared. And hopefully that will help reduce some of their anxiety. Marcia, do you have anything to add?
I think the sooner that the schools can kind of list out what it's going to look like, the better it's going to be for parents to be able to have those discussions with the kids. If they're rearranging classrooms, starting a new school anyway, or a new school year has already creates anxiety, even if you've been at the same school, it's still, oh my gosh, it's I'm a little bit nervous. So if there's opportunities to, view the school, what the visual changes are going to be, I think that would be really good. That parents should take advantage of that. And, school districts should allow parents to be able to come in and see what does 6 feet apart look like with desks. There's probably going to be less kids in the classroom. And so what does that look like? And, I'm sure the teachers are anxious about, okay, how are we going to hire more teachers if we're going to have more classrooms? So the more you can give a visual for the kids, I think the less anxious they're going to be, and more information that's pertinent to them.
Would you say, Marcia, that it would even be helpful to, okay, let's say we can't take our kids into the school environment before it starts, but maybe practice some of those things at home, or draw a picture of what it might look like, how the classrooms might look different, or maybe even Brooke, when you said about that they would have to, not be able to like touch each other during recess time. I mean, for kids, that's, they play tag or they play soccer or basketball. That's something that you just don't even think about. And yet now we're going to have to ask our kids to be so mindful of not having close contact with other children. I just think if there's a way that they could practice that, or have some different activities that they could play during the time, but that's going to be a real challenge.
It's a shame too, and I hope they it doesn't go to that extent. You know what I mean? Because, you know, kids need that rough and tumble play. Kids to grow and develop need to be touched by other human beings. And so if they can alter it where when they go out, before they go out on the playground, they're putting hand sanitizer. When they come back in, they put, you know, there's some way that they can figure out how to do that. Because, you know, if I had somebody, you know, a kid that young, you know, kindergarten, where they, you know, it's so sweet. You see the little kindergartners holding, you know, each other's hands, and, you know, that's how they learn. That's the social emotional development that these kids are going to need throughout their lifetime. And to deprive them of that, I feel like will really kind of impact them developmentally. I don't know. What do you think, Brooke?
I would completely agree. We all need touch, and we see if the kids aren't getting touch and nurture, they're going to find a way to get the touch. And that's when sometimes you see acting out behaviors and them gaining it however they can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're going to get it one way or the other.
They will.
Yeah. Well, and that's how the kids learn what's appropriate and not appropriate. You know, if somebody is, if we go right back to kindergarten and that, you know, they walk down the hallway with a buddy and they hold hands, then they learn in those moments, ow, you're squeezing my hand too tight, or no, you're not holding on tight enough, and we keep losing our grip. So just even the most minute, small details, they're not going to be able to get some of those experiences. So,
you know, kids can, you know, very often be regulated through touch. You know, a simple hand on the shoulder on a kid that's, you know, kind of worked up just will settle them down instantly. And so if you take those interventions away from the teachers and the parapros where they can't support the kids, you probably are going to experience more difficulties, and your kids are going to have more challenges, behavioral issues in school. So I really think that's something that they have to speak with the professionals about, you know, not only the doctors, but educators and psychologists and psychiatrists. You know, what is going to be the long-term ramifications if we limit the touch of these children in the schools?
Because if you think about the term failure to thrive, I mean, that's extreme neglect. This is what we're talking about. We naturally need touch as humans, and if we take that away, I mean, we don't know what it will look like.
Right.
Well, and I think also preparing our kids for instances where they maybe trip up and they make a mistake, and then we have the adults saying, you're not allowed to do that. You know, you must follow these rules. And, you know, because we're adding more rules, yet we're taking away the nurture. You know, we talked about structure nurture before. So here we are adding more rules, and we're taking away all of the opportunity for nurture because there's no physical touch involved.
Right.
We can be kind about it, but we're just increasing that physical proximity between the children and other people or caring adults. And so I think preparing our kids for, sometimes you may make a mistake and somebody and a grown-up is going to have to talk to you about that, and that's not going to feel nice. So let's practice it as much as we can at home, what it might look like at school, so that you know how you're going to be expected to behave.
Right.
Yeah, Kirsty, you're completely right, because we need to prepare them at home, because we don't want them to experience that feeling of shame if they do touch someone at school and that's not allowed, and then they start feeling like I'm a bad kid, there's something wrong with me. We don't want that. We just want them to know that we're not going to be able to be perfect with this, and we're just going to try to do our best. But then at home as parents, we're going to have to definitely increase our nurture and our touch with them to try to offset what's going on during the day while they're at school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's kind of continue this kind of a theme in terms of limitations being lifted. So with the shelter in place being lifted, how do I reintegrate my kids in the community? So what might be some steps that we might suggest to help parents reintegrate their kids into the community?
I think first off, preparing them for what they're going to see. You know, put the masks on so they can see, you know, kids can see the mask and get them used to the mask, and get, you know, give them their own mask. If you know somebody that makes a mask, have them make a fun mask for the kids. So, you know, if they're old enough to wear them. So they know, so it's not embarrassing. But it's like, okay, everybody's doing it, so let me have a cool mask to wear. Maybe doing drive-bys first to check, you know, just look at people as they're driving. Help them prepare, you know, teach them what the little X's are for on the floor. So, you know, doing some hands-on, showing them without over-responding. No, don't go past this line, you know, you're going to get to COVID, you know, being real calm and nurturing about, okay, we have to wait here. I know there's a big space, but we have to wait here while they're paying. Any kind of visual as well as verbal prep you can do where they can see it, it kind of normalizes it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with Marcia. If we can just slowly integrate them back into the community, whether it's, you know, 1 week, your goal is to take them out once or twice and trying to increase it so it's not too anxiety provoking for the kids. So maybe take them to the grocery store and showing them, like Marcia said, the arrows even on the floor of the grocery store, and letting them know that that's the direction that we go down the aisles, and slowly but surely reintegrating them. Because I know as a parent myself, like my children haven't gone anywhere until about last week, and then they went to a store with us, and it was shocking for them to see the different changes, the little screens that are in front of the cashiers, everybody in the store wearing masks. Even my anxiety was high having them in the store with me, because I was like, don't touch that, don't touch that. And they're so used to being able to touch whatever, you know, really that they want it to. So I even had to check my own self and like kind of taking some deep breaths, and we're going to use hand sanitizer as soon as we walk out the store. So I have to work hard to not increase their anxiety by how I'm reacting to it.
Yeah, and that is true. I mean, it starts with us as the parents, you know. We're used to sending our 10, 11, 12-year-old, oh, I forgot that this particular box of cereal. Hey, run across and go grab the cereal. Can you still do that now? Or, you know, do you say, okay, go get the cereal, but make sure you follow the arrows. So there is some normalcy to, hey, you go get this, make sure you, versus, you know, okay, everybody has to stay right here and don't touch anything. So try to help make it normal within the guidelines that's expected. So, and then, you know, let them know that every time you walk out, put that hand sanitizer on. Mm-hmm. And that's normal too. You walk out of the house, hand sanitizer, walk into stores, you know, so it just becomes what they do rather than it's an anxiety.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for some of the younger kids too, trying to find ways to either engage them or make it fun. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, can we have them draw pictures of what it might look like before they leave the house? So we're starting to prepare them before they've even gone out and seen what it looks like. Marsha, I loved your idea of having a fun face mask made. Mm-hmm. Or can they decorate their own? Maybe that's something that they could do. And then is there, and I don't know how doable this could be, it depends if you're very creative, but is there a way that we can make it a game when we're out? Obviously having enough structure so that it's, you know, everybody's safe, but is there a way that we could make it a game? So like how many tape X's can you spot, or how many things can you spot? Something like that, where we're trying to make it fun and engaging for the kids. while
it's tough now. I mean, I was at the grocery store, and as you said, Brooke, even for me, I'm just 2 aisles and I'm like checking to go, and I'm going down the wrong arrow, and somebody walks by me, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I just need this one thing. I just need this. It wasn't my defiance. It was, I just need this one thing. And if I could just slide down there real quick. But I felt so anxious and nervous. I felt like I was breaking the law because I was going the wrong way. I was about to turn around, but I got some dirty looks.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's okay, but it was like, how dare she go the wrong way on the one-way road?
I felt like that too when I've accidentally, like when you go through the whole grocery store and then you're like, oh, I need one item, but to go into that aisle, it's all the way at the other end.
Yeah.
And
what do you it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
So
that you've got the mask as well, which I don't know about you two, but it's somewhat claustrophobic to have to wear a mask, and then to feel like, okay, I can't touch anything, and you're so focused on your personal space, so I think then thinking about maybe our younger kids don't feel that quite so much, but our mid-age kiddos, our kind of 5 through 12-year-olds who don't really have full understanding, but also are able to really feel how uncomfortable it is because they know that there's rules that they have to follow. And then if they're wearing masks as well, I think if we feel uncomfortable and we're trying to, like you said, Brooke, that we're trying to keep our anxiety controlled, then just think about how our kids are feeling during those times.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so thinking about our own anxiety, this question is, what does stress look like in an adult? I'm worried about myself as I'm snapping at my kids a lot. So what might be some signs that we are feeling stressed ourselves?
You want to start, Brooke?
Yeah, I was going to say from the question, just if you notice that you're snapping at your kids more often, there's a clear sign that you are under a lot of stress. Are you, because it can go from extremes where are you just laying on the couch and you just don't have a lot of energy, to where are you just snapping at everybody? And it can be anything in between. You are noticing that you're eating a lot, or if you're the opposite of that, could be, are you not eating at all because of your stress, just depending on how you handle that? Are you sleeping a lot?
Snarky.
Yeah, snarky.
Being snarky. That's, you're stressed, you're snarky. And it's, those abrupt answers that you really don't mean to be abrupt. And your kids might say, well, that was rude. And then you come back with, you want rude? I'll give you rude,
Yeah.
So you start finding yourself in a little bit, some power struggles. And you should know yourself well enough to know, okay, I'm not this kind of person that, gets snarky and sarcastic. So maybe I need to change something of what I'm doing.
Well, I think allowing yourself some grace and kind of understanding that, we talk to our kids a lot about how anger is really this secondary emotion. And so what we're really experiencing under that is this kind of anxiety and just like bubbling stress. But because we don't want our children to see us, our anxiety, we don't want them to feel our anxiety, we kind of bottle it up, and then it comes out when we don't expect it, and it's that snarky, snapping, low tolerance behavior that we start to see.
Kind of like the squished tomato syndrome, right? Where you squish the tomato and try to keep it all in. It's the more you squish, it's going to pop out everywhere. So if you can control where you're squishing your tomato,
I've not heard that analogy before, Marsha, but I think it's brilliant, and what a great one to use with our kids as well.
Somebody else said they hadn't heard that, but I just assumed everybody has heard it. So when you started laughing, I'm like, okay, she doesn't know what I'm talking about. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you squish the tomato, the juices are gonna pop out everywhere, and some is gonna come up a little bit, and some, so instead of squishing the tomato, if we do it neatly and take real good care of it, and that's what we have to do, because it's gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's how it comes out, and it's okay to say, today I'm really stressed out. I need to go take a walk, or I need to read just a little bit, or if we're really in one of those days, it's like, it's just not a good day for a yes answer.
Mm-hmm.
So go find something to do and give me a moment.
Well, I think it's also okay to say, you said it's not a good day for a yes answer. Well, sometimes it's just not a good day for no answers too, and it's okay if the day doesn't go as you planned it was going to go. If everyone is safe and has food in their belly and a place to sleep, then we're doing a good job. And sometimes that's okay, just to do the basics through the day.
Yes.
And sometimes it's okay if you blow up. It's all about that repair afterwards, and we go, and it's okay to say, even as the adult, wow, I really messed that one up, didn't I? And I didn't use my good voice, and I used my mean voice, and I shouldn't have done that. And I'm going to try to do it differently next time, just like we would want our kids to do.
And that happened yesterday, when I was with one of the kids, and I don't know what happened, but I got sarcastic, and and then I caught myself, and I said, wow, I said, I should not have been sarcastic to you. I'm sorry. That is just not like me. And you're right. It's about the repair, and actually, it turned out really well. You say, not only was I able to role model, what, sometimes we do and say things as adults that that we have to apologize for. And, that's how you role model, what, we're not perfect. And you role model apologizing, and it actually turned out really well. So.
Well, our kids are often more resilient than we give them credit for.
Right.
And I don't just mean our kids at Chaddock, but I mean just kids in general.
Oh, kids overall, yeah.
Yeah. And they're able and often not only able to accept that we blew up, but they're able to accept our apology afterwards, and then we can almost move into being playful about it. And hey, next time you see me being sarcastic, make sure you tell me, hey, that we talked about this already and it's not okay. Bringing some playfulness to it, because then that opens up for the opposite of, if our children are doing something that's not quite what we would expect, then, hey, remember when you told me that I was being sarcastic? I think this is happening the other way around right now, having those interactions.
Yeah.
Well, and kids are very forgiving,
mm-hmm.
and they're very resilient, and they love their parents. And so they're going to be even more forgiving to when their parents make mistakes. So we don't have to beat ourselves up for, making a mistake or being rude or sarcastic or snarky. We just repair it, because they're going to be very forgiving, just like we would be forgiving if they make a mistake.
Yeah, and I know that within Chaddock, at least, we talk a lot about how it's about that secure relationship is all about that. The relationship will have breaks, but it's all about the repair. It's when we leave our kids alone in the broken and the yucky stuff is when we start to encounter more of those problems. So,
exactly.
That's why that repair is so important, even if it's us having to, start the repair off, that start
Right.
the process off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have another question here that is kind of similar. So it says, I am anxious about the summer months. What tips do you have for us all getting through them and staying sane and positive? So kind of along the same lines of that stress question. So tips for getting through the summer months when really we've kind of already had a few months where it looks a bit like summer.
Mm-hmm.
Brooke, what do you think?
I would say the biggest thing is we have to get these kids moving. So physical activity is going to be really important for them, going for bike rides, playing sports outside, basketball, football, just within the family, going fishing, going hiking. You know, some of the parks that I know, even the state parks are open. So in Quincy, you can go out to Siloam Springs and going through the different trails. I think that's
Or just a picnic.
yeah.
Throw some peanut butter and jelly and some chips in a bag and a Frisbee, and let the kids throw or bubbles and balloons, and let them play and have a picnic. Fresh air, just getting them out into a new environment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something expensive or, typically maybe we would go to Six Flags, or we would go to a movie theater, or we would do something special like that. But it doesn't have to be. It can be finding the simplest activity. We have a 10-year-old, and we did a dog walk, and on the dog walk I pulled up my phone and I pulled up a scavenger hunt for her. And I thought, oh gosh, she's not gonna want to, but sure enough she did. And so I think just finding the simple things can be just as good as the bigger treats that we might usually do.
Right. Campgrounds are closed still, but nobody says you can't throw some sleeping bags out in the yard or pitch your tent out in the yard. So those kind of things, it's going to take a little bit more creativity, but, or take them to grandma's house and say, hey, we're popping the tent up at grandma's house, and, let them stay at grandma's house. Just anything that give them a change of environment. But, and the more positive we make it, hey guys, let's go on a picnic. It'll be a lot of fun. They might say, oh, we don't want to go, it's boring. Well, I know it's boring, but come on, let's go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And, don't try to, convince them of what great time we'll have. Just, just kind of pull them along, get behind them, proverbially gently move them along. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be expensive. And, there's a lot to be said for disc throwing and, I don't know if they do like darts and those kind of things, but those kind of things you can just take along with you just to give them something to do. Little ones can play with bubbles, and it just gives you a change of scenery.
Mm-hmm. Even making like a fort inside, or making a pretend tent inside if the weather's bad, and buying some marshmallows, something easy like that you can, and getting tea lights where you can toast your marshmallows on the tea lights,
Yeah, slumber party downstairs. Yeah.
But like you said, Marsha, it does take that extra creativity, which I think a lot of parents are probably struggling with at the moment. But even if you can maybe just find one thing that's a different kind of activity, or think about, okay, what are some summer activities? I really liked your idea, Marsha, of just putting a tent up in the backyard. So, okay, what about swimming? Could we even utilize the bathtub as something, as a swimming pool? Trying to find what are summer activities that we could adjust to make work in our current environment.
If you got a hose and a spigot,
yeah,
just good old fashioned a hose and a spigot and spraying each other, and you don't have to have really expensive toys, or go every weekend to Six Flags, although it would be a lot of fun. You just don't know whether they're going to be open. So start planning now. I think the key is start planning now, And each week, you know, have something in your, you know, written down each week on the weekends. We as a family are going to go on a hike, go on a picnic, go on a bike ride, so that the kids know, okay, we are going to get out and we are going to do things. As you know, it might be we're not going to be able to have 10 of our closest friends come over and spend the night, but it might be we're going to build a fort with our brothers and sisters and mom and dad, and everybody's going to sleep downstairs and watch movies all night long. So, you know, you can do like a make your own day where you make your own pizza, make your own sundae, you know, make your own video where you can videotape each other TikToks and then watch movies all night long. So finding ways to be creative within the constraints of the COVID restrictions.
And maybe even asking the kids for their input, or give them a list and say, which one would you like to choose, or which two would you like to choose this weekend for us to do? So, you know, if you're worried that if you ask your kids what they'd like to do and either they come up with something that you can't afford or is unrealistic or is just not doable, then, you know, giving them that choice to choose from is still allowing them some input into what's going on in their daily lives. So
you make a good point, Christy, right there. Give the kids a choice of 4, you know, we can do this, this, or this, because if you say, hey guys, what do you want to do this weekend? They're going to come up with a lot of, well, we want to go to Six Flags. Well, it's closed. Oh, we want to do this. Well, we can't do that. So you've given them all the power, and now you've taken all the power back. So, you know, give them, here's what our options are this weekend. What would you like to do? So
I never even thought of it like that, Marsha, how even though it's not us that's saying no as such, you know, if you use Six Flags as an example, it's not us that's saying no, it's Six Flags that are closed. So, but it's still us that's taking that power away again. Like you said, you've given it to them and now you're taking it away. And I've never really even thought about it like that. I've always just thought, well, it's not me. I'm not making the decision, but actually I'm the one in the interaction with the child and they only see me. They don't see the people behind Six Flags who are making those choices. So that's a really good way of looking at it, and to try to remember that when I'm engaging with the kids and having those interactions. So, okay. All right, so let's adjust the topic a little. So this one is it normal for my kid to have signs of depression? So during this time that we find ourselves in. Brooke, what do you think about that?
I would say it's pretty normal to have signs of depression because their whole life has been altered a little bit in some ways. So their schools changed, their home life has changed, in their neighborhoods, it's changed. So
I guess maybe what we need to ask or explain. So what might be some signs of depression that a parent might see in their child, first of all?
I would say you can see them being withdrawn, kind of gorging on social media or their electronics. You can see the opposite of just that isolation. It might move into more of some yelling at their top of their lungs at you, getting into arguments with you. So you can see a whole wide range of behaviors from somebody that's experiencing depression. It's just noticing that if you see a change in your child, start talking to them about it. Well, I noticed that you're staying in your room a lot longer. Can you tell me what's going on? Or trying really hard just to get them moving. I know this is really tough. This is tough for me as well. I would rather just curl up in a ball and lay in my room and be on my phone, but it's really not healthy for us. Let's go for a bike ride.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Marsha.
I just say one of the things that I know that kids do is they'll sit in their room with their headphones on and listen to, you know, real depressing movies or some real hard, angry movies that just get their feelings all going. so being watching for that, that would, they prefer to do that. I'm not criticizing music for any means, but, if it brings out some really yucky feelings, and then we need to help them change their music style so that they can feel a little more upbeat.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think being mindful of remembering that we're in this really tricky and strange situation. Our kids have none of us have experienced anything like this before. And so I think being mindful of jumping to labels, and remembering that maybe some of what we're seeing is due to just kind of being stuck inside. A lot of people feel some depressive symptoms if they can't go out in the sun, and they can't go out and get fresh air, and some of that might be what our children are experiencing, and not necessarily something that's worthy of a diagnosis of depression. Mm-hmm. Because depression in itself has a very specific diagnosis. If you do notice that your child is withdrawing and is irritable, try to take note of how long that's going on for. Is this extended? Is this happening every single day, or is this kind of just blips that are happening here and there throughout the days? I worry that some parents may see some of these behaviors and think, oh no, my child has depression, when actually it's this byproduct of what we're experiencing right now.
You make a good point, Kirsty, because everybody, I think, has one of those down in the dumps day, mm-hmm. Where their mood is just blah. They, drop of a hat, they either want to cry or yell at somebody. And I think people are quick to put a label to it. Oh, I'm so depressed. Mm-hmm. Versus, no, I'm just having a yucky day, or I'm just down in the dumps today. But really looking at, is it depression from a clinical standpoint versus, it's situational. You had a couple of rough days, but we're going to move past it.
Mm-hmm. So another question we've had, which is similar in terms of, mental health and clinical behaviors, is during this time at home, I've noticed that my child struggles to sit still, stay on task, and finish tasks. How do I know if this is just due to being stuck at home, or if this is something more complicated like ADHD? So what would maybe be, and we can, apply this to depression as well. What might be how would we know if it was something more serious or not?
Marsha, you want to take that one?
Okay. So I think first off, we need to understand that like depression, ADHD is a clinical diagnosis and should only be diagnosed by a mental health professional or a doctor. And so unfortunately, if we speak aloud to that too often, kids are going to regurgitate, oh, I'm ADHD, so I can't focus anyway. And so that becomes their normal, and they expect it out of themselves. If we see a pattern that's extended across the school, at home, and other places of hyperactivity, inability to concentrate, inability to focus, we should consider taking them to a professional to be evaluated. However, during this time, if the kids are sitting at the table doing their homework and we're constantly saying, stay focused, we need to think about, okay, when was the last time they had a break? Can they really do the schoolwork? Am I giving them the attention that they need so, they can stay focused? Are we, so we have to evaluate the bigger picture. If they've been sitting there for 2 hours and after an hour they're doing one of these numbers, it's like, okay, let's get up and move. You should get up and move the kids every hour anyway. Get them a drink, get them, something, a little snack. give them some fun and laughter, which all takes about 3 to 5 minutes, and then sit them back down. So,
well, and we've talked about schedules a lot, over the last few weeks, and when we're at home and we're having to work, I think that sometimes, as you mentioned, Marsha, ask yourself, how long have they been sitting for? And where, we're able to sit. Well, actually, most of us aren't able to sit for very long without moving around, but we can obviously sit still for longer than our kids. And so I think sometimes we forget how long they've been sat still, and we see them start wriggling. And our first is, hey, you need to sit still and concentrate. So I think, as you said, putting some of those movement breaks into the schedule, because that's what would happen if they were in a school environment. Our older kids who change lessons every 40, 50 minutes, they get that natural break. And our younger kids get the natural breaks when the teacher changes the activity. And so, it's highly likely that they're not getting those same breaks when they're at home with us, and through no fault of the parent or trying to put the schedule in place, but just because we're not teachers, we're not educators, we haven't learned that this is how the day should be scheduled in order to do those things successfully.
right.
That's okay.
Right.
So, okay. So just to reiterate on that, our answers. So if we're seeing behaviors that are happening consistently and across the board, is when we would probably want to reach out to a pediatrician or to a doctor to talk further about some of those things that we're seeing.
Right.
Okay.
But being aware of, if they're seeing it during the day, they need to maybe change some things up.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, here's our next question. I feel like I'm doing it all wrong. I end up yelling at my kids for fighting or not doing what I ask. How can I have a good relationship if I am always yelling at them? So we've kind of talked a bit about this when we talked about the repair side of the relationship. Brooke, what might be some things that a parent could do when they find themselves in that moment where they find themselves about to yell at their child? What might be something to help stop that?
If they notice that they're getting ready to do it, I mean, it's okay for a parent to say, mom needs a break right now for about 5 minutes. I'm going to go in the other room for 5 minutes. Because we need to have that time to get ourselves together before we go into an interaction that's stressful with our kids, because we want to be our best. And then we've talked a lot about over these webinars and these chats about self-care, and that question, that's what it kind of sounds like, is that the parent needs to implement more self-care throughout the day, even if it's those 5-minute breaks that we've talked about doing, because we can't give our best if we're not actually taking care of ourselves and making sure that, we are our best. And sometimes we just have to give ourselves a little break and not be so hard on ourselves, because we are going to make mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes, and like Kirsty said, repair that. And then after the repair, try doing something fun. So pick an activity that is not so stressful for the whole family to do together. So if board games don't go over well at your house, pick a different game. Like go outside and play tag, something that doesn't take a lot of thought, where you know that you're just going to have fun laughing. Get some water balloons, go outside and throw that. Who doesn't have fun, playing water balloons? We just have to bring laughter back into that house when we feel we notice that we're being really hard on ourselves, and if we're being hard on our kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And another method that I thought of while you were talking about that, Brooke, is something that we, or at least I have used both at Chaddock and in previous places of work where I've worked with kids, is not being afraid to ask to be tapped out or tap yourself out. And by that, I mean asking for help from your significant other, or if you know, even if you're back in work and you work with kids, you know, asking a colleague and saying, I really need to just step away right now, because I feel myself losing control, and then the kids don't feel safe, and then I'm not, as you said, bringing my best self to this interaction, and therefore I'm breaking that relationship even more. You know, maybe you need a code word with your significant other. Hey, if I say break, I mean it. I need to just literally walk away, and I need you to take over at that time.
You know, you just made me think, Chrissy, one of the best things in a game of tag or things is what? Time out, you know, time out. And, you know, why don't we do that for ourselves, okay? Time out, you sit there, I'm going here. And so when you said that in tag, I'm like, oh, well, in tag we give timeouts. Why can't we give ourselves a timeout? You know, and then you, yeah, so.
Or do you guys have, we used to play it too, where you'd have a home base or a safe spot. You know, is it, yeah, you could do that as well. You know, hang on, I need to go to my home base for a few minutes to get my breath back. And then we're going to carry on with, you know, and even if you have to go do that, and then we go back to the difficult conversation still, or, you know, the chat where we have to say, you know, it's not okay for us to behave like that while we're playing a board game or that kind of thing.
Right.
You've allowed yourself that time to come out of your back brain and start thinking with your logical front brain again. Otherwise, then everyone's in back brain and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, that's, even if it takes 10 timeouts and breaks to play a game of Candyland, you know what, if you end it on a positive note and, you know, everybody's doing high fives or air high fives, however we want to do it right now, you've ended successfully, and it didn't end in a fight. Try to always make the activities end successfully.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so this question kind of links well to that, because we're talking about trying to do successful activities or bring fun to the activity. What is the best way to get children to do what they are told without whining or complaining? So we are asking our kids to do things that aren't necessarily fun or exciting for them, but nonetheless need to be done. So, Marsha, do you have any tips for how to help our children get done what they need to get done without whining and complaining?
You know, part of me says that, you know, kids are going to whine and complain. Okay, adults whine and complain. And so we can say, if they're like, I don't want to do this, you can say, I know, me either, but let's do it together. And then we get so much better. So we can kind of match them with their whining, and, you know, and make it kind of fun. You're not making fun of them, but make it kind of funny and put some laughter into it. And then you could maybe say, do you want me to sit with you, or do you want me to pick you breakfast while you do it? You know, so you could really make that whine a really exaggerated whine. The more fun you can have with doing whatever is expected, the more likelihood they're going to do it. And if you can be emotionally present and add some laughter and make it fun, they're going to want to do it the next day. And they're going to say, you know, so, you know, if it's math and you have to add 2 and 2, and so if you end up with 4, then you're going to do 4 jumping jacks. Mom's going to do 4 jumping jacks or whatever. And so it gives you your exercise. And of course, the kids are going to make fun of the mom for doing jumping jacks or whatever's funny. 4 crab rock. Okay, we're going to do 4 crab races around the room. You know, so then they're going to get up the next day and say, oh, can we do it the way we did it yesterday? So they're going to remember that. And so it's really a relationship building. It's going to be fun. And it'll kind of take the whining out of it a little bit.
Yeah, I like, Marsha, what you said. Like, we can match them first with that whininess and then bring them over to that playful side. We hope that they just naturally follow us over there to try to eliminate that or decrease how often they're being whining.
Right.
Well, and I think too, if the playfulness isn't necessarily working, because sometimes it doesn't, as we talked about, everybody has those down in the dumps days where we're just not feeling it. Then we, I don't know about you two, but in most of my interactions with kids, if I can start with playfulness, and they accept it, then that's where I'm always going to start. But if the playfulness isn't being received very well, then I'm going to try to move to providing that empathy, and maybe then we use some of our choices. We've talked a lot about choices too. Well, you can choose to do it now, or you can choose to do it in 30 minutes. As long as we are in the knowledge of the child is always going to make the preferred choice, usually we'll make whatever the preferred choice is. Well, would you like to do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? And if it's a good activity, they're going to do it for 10 minutes. If it's one they don't enjoy, they're going to choose 5 minutes. That's okay, because those are choices that we're happy with. Allowing them to feel some empowerment when we're trying to get them to do something that they don't really want to do because they're feeling powerless. Oh gosh, now I have to do this and I don't get a say in it. So if we can add that power back in to them or for them, I think we're more likely to be successful. And they may still whine, and then that may be then where you turn it back into the playfulness of it. So, Brooke, did you have any other thoughts or suggestions for that one?
Yeah, because you brought up, not always does our playfulness work, and we have to be attuned to noticing when it's not working, because sometimes kids can perceive our playfulness as either being sarcastic or making fun of them, and it will just escalate whatever's going on. So that attunement piece is going to be really important to see if they're responding to our playfulness that day, or do they need some extra nurture and rubbing their back in that moment and just kind of being there with them when they're in that whiny state.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that empathy of I know, and rubbing their back, or just being, putting your arm around them. I know this is hard. It's hard on me too. It's hard on your brothers and sisters. So being empathic and supportive is another way to, they'll think, oh, mom really does get it, or dad really does get it. It's hard for them too.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't even have to say anything to them. If just our physical presence and being there in that moment with them, because we do have those kids that if we start talking, then that just irritates them. So if we're just sitting there with them, it's showing that we care about them and we're gonna stick through it with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll probably do our last question now. Kind of similar. It says, it's a struggle getting everyone to play without arguing. Then it's not fun. It's to the point where the older ones are refusing to play or be engaged in any family activity. What can I do to get everyone to participate?
We got to be salesmen. We got to be showing them that we are the coolest people and we are having the best time. Because if we're just kind of, let's say we're playing tag and we're not really running or trying really hard, then we might not get our kid to engage. But if we're cracking up and thinking it's funny, let's say we even trip and fall on purpose, but just to be playful, they're going to want to join us. So we have to be the number one salesman for whatever activity we're trying to get them to join in.
Yes, I completely agree. I always say, when I was younger, it's like, oh my gosh, that old person. Now I'm that old person, and it's like, I am, and so you have to be more confident. You have to be more funny. You have to be more over the top without looking a little bit crazy. Yeah. Well, okay, sometimes I do look crazy, but, and making it not taking, oh, you're so old, you can't do it. Don't take those personally, or you're so clumsy, you can't do this, Mom. You could say, you know what, I might be clumsy, but I'm going to give it a heck of a try. And so really put that full energy, and the more playful and funny you can be about yourself, the more it's going to really take them with you on that ride of having fun.
Well, and if you're already laughing at yourself, then it's not going to impact you if the kids start laughing at you too. You're not going to be taking it personally because you're already laughing at yourself. So I mean, though, what you guys have suggested is so true. Some of the more challenging groups of kids that I've ever worked with, are usually some of the older ones. And I know, Marsha, you're working closely with our kids at the moment too. And the most success that I have had has been when I have continued the activity myself and have gently said to the ones that don't want to participate, said, it's okay if you don't want to. All I'm asking is that you just sit and watch, or you sit quietly. That's like the only expectation. If you don't want to take part, that's okay. I just ask that you're quiet so that the rest of us can do it. And that persistent and consistent approach ultimately led to those ones who weren't participating to come and join us, because they wanted.
I do that, and then I add, at any point in time you want to jump in, feel free to jump in. And you're right. I'm working with all the kids now during this time, and I have to make my activities fun. So I have to be the funnest person in this room, because we're in the classroom, we're isolated, and I have to make my activity sound like the best thing ever. And it's ping pong balls and bubbles and cotton balls, and and the more I laugh and have fun, and if a ping pong ball goes flying across the room and accidentally hits the kid in the shoulder, and when I say, wake up now over there, they laugh, and they know it's funny, and they're more apt to be engaged.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is, well, exactly what you're talking about is getting rid of your own agenda. As adults, we would go in and, okay, we're going to play this game and it's going to go like this and da 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 da. But actually, if you can just let go of that and go with the flow and be silly and allow yourself to just relax from your own agenda, right. It becomes a lot easier right. to get the kids involved.
Yeah. So what that would look like in home, our agenda as parents is, we have to eat dinner. We have to eat dinner. Well, okay, so do we have to eat at the dinner table? I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. Okay, you might not be hungry at the table, but what if you're hungry on the floor? Or what if you're hungry outside on the deck? And, and try to make it more engaging and fun. Or, okay, let's go outside and feed the duck one bite and feed you a bite if they're little, 3, 4. And say, okay, maybe the duck, let's feed the bird one bite and you one bite, so that at least it's not a power struggle where you're hitting head on with they're going to have to eat dinner. How can you switch it around, make it a little different, make it a little fun?
Yeah. Brooke, have you got an example where you've had to drop your agenda at all? Can you think of something that you kind of went in with it, imagining it one way, and then you had to switch and let go of that and do it a different way?
Oh yeah, that happens often, especially with some of the work that Marsha and I do together. If we even had to switch roles a few times as when we're doing the work in our in-home intensive program. But when you don't have a kid that's engaged or in an activity, we have to switch it up really quick on the fly. It's like, I know let's say we had an activity and it's like standing in a circle as a family and we're doing, what's some of our activities, Marsha?
What's the classic one was the gal that popped our balloon, Remember that?
We were doing balloon races. Okay, so let's say that. And a girl pulled out a stray pin and popped our balloon. And we had to think like on the fly, let's switch activities.
That's exactly what kids do.
They do. It's like, you know, it wasn't about, you know, if you're stuck in your box of, why'd you do that? Why did you pop our balloon? Where'd you get that straight pin? But we went into, that's awesome. Let's blow another balloon and pop it. Now we're going into, you know,
Yeah.
and just not even make it a big issue and just laugh about it. And, you know, that was really kind of a turning point we had with this particular girl. You know, she thought she was going to get under our skin and get us mad at her and really derail the process. And I think sometimes kids like to derail the process just to see what they can, you know, if they can, and how to really aggravate the parents.
Yeah, they want to see how we're going to react, don't
Yeah.
they? And are we going to be consistent in how we react? You know, that's what testing limits is all about, is how are you going to respond to me if I'm good, if I'm not so good, if I mess up, if I make a mistake. So yeah, letting go of our own agenda. Okay, well, we are about out of time, so I would like to say thank you to everyone for joining us today, and please be sure to look at our website, because this recording is going to be up there along with our previous recordings, and you can find that at chaddock.org. And yeah, thank you, ladies, for coming along, and we hope you will have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.